By now, many of you have seen the video where there's two officers sitting in their squad car and an animal walks up and opens fire on them and then takes off. Those two officers were critically wounded. I believe both of them were both shot in the head. As of today, right now, they haven't died yet, which thank God that hasn't happened. But the reason I want to make a video is because I went online and I was curious. I really was. I wanted to see what was the reaction going to be from a lot of these progressive Black Lives Matter activists. You know, were they going to be quiet or were they going to actually push back on the narrative? The narrative being that, you know, it's just two innocent officers sitting there. Was there going to be pushback to that? And of course, there was. And that's why I want to make a video, because I think we're at a point in this country where there's a line that has been drawn. And everybody that's been waiting on the sidelines has to make a choice. Are you going to stand on the side of law enforcement, where regardless if you think that there needs to be reforms, how many reforms, how deep those reforms need to be, but that you believe that law enforcement should exist? You believe that law enforcement's main job is to be able to keep all of the crime, the muck, all the terrible, horrendous things in check in our society? Or do you believe that none of that needs to happen? Do you believe that law enforcement is systemically and endemically racist? Do you believe that we need to have revolution and nothing less? Those are the two sides. And the reason why we have to pick, why we can't just sit by, is the vile things that are coming out of people's mouths in defense of the idea that these law enforcement officers had it coming to them. What did you expect? Some people are writing, when black people and people of color have had their, you know, the boot on their necks, the knees on their necks by law enforcement for 400 plus years. Eventually people are going to reach a boiling point and this is going to happen. That's insane, right? I mean, it might not be insane if you're on that side of things where you think that's a thing, but this is where we're at. That's where people are. There's people that are coming up with excuses, justifications to say, well, of course this is going to happen. I was looking at a couple of articles. LA Times, there's been this investigation looking into specifically the sheriff deputy unit that's out of Compton, saying that there's this alleged gang, right? And so some people are using that as a justification where, oh, this is just some gang stuff gone bad. Like the ridiculousness that you would justify, even if it was true, which I don't believe it is. I mean, I could be wrong, but from everything that I looked at, it just seems pretty preposterous that there's a gang of different officers in 2020 going around and, you know, murdering people for fun and initiating each other in and things like that. But let's just say that is true. Why wouldn't the reaction be to root out the corruption? Not to just accept it and be like, well, this is revolution. This is the type of thing that's going to happen until you fundamentally tear down the entire system. So that's where we're at in this country. You have to pick a side. Now, I pick the side of law enforcement. I believe that America is the greatest nation to exist. I believe that even if there is corruption in our government, our Constitution created 3 branches, right? And each of those branches can check the other branch. So if I believe that in the judicial branch, I have an avenue to put the executive branch, the police officers in check, I go to the judicial branch. If I believe that maybe that's not the best way, I go to the legislative branch. I go and I sit down with my elected officials and say, hey, we need to really look into this because we the people have the power to do that. But the system is set up to allow us to be able to do those things, to change the things that we think are wrong. But the idea that's being perpetuated by progressives, and especially by the Black Lives Matter activists, is that this is a revolution. There's going to be casualties in this revolution. We can't just stand by. Pick a side. Which side are you going to be on? This isn't about right versus left. That's not what this is about. This is not Republican versus Democrat, Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. No. This is about what is America. Is America good enough to save, where we can change if you really want to change it? Or is America just done? Just throw it in the trash. it's done. No point in me even having a country anymore. That's what we have to decide. Now, the thing that I was probably most surprised by were the thousands of these types of posts giving justification to this horrendous thing that happened to these two officers. Thousands, tens of thousands, retweets, people sharing different things that people are sharing, these hateful messages towards law enforcement. Now, I don't know how big and how representative that is. I don't know if it's 1% or if it's 20%, but it seems like it's a lot. And especially how many people I've seen on social media that have been completely quiet about it. So we have to pick a side. Do we stand for law enforcement in this country? Even if you want it to be reformed, even if you want it, all the terrible things to be removed from it, which, I think that that's reasonable, right? We need to always be striving to have better. But that is all on the same side. Wanting to change it or even keep it the same, you still at least fundamentally believe that there is something worth changing, something worth saving, versus the other side is like, who cares? Let's have a revolution. Let's tear the whole thing down. It's not worth saving. So pick. You have to. That's why I wanted to make this video. There's a lot of people that I think have good intentions. They want better justice. They think that this is, this Black Lives Matter is all about helping black people. But it's so much deeper than that. And you can't be stupid enough to pretend that you don't know what's really going on. That the Black Lives Matter movement is about revolution. It's about radically changing America. To change it to something that America has not been, but that people want it to be. Something that is fundamentally different than what we see today. That's what Black Lives Matter is. So you have to choose. Do you want revolution or nothing less? Or I should say revolution, nothing less. Or do you want America to stay America? Do you want America to continue to have these impassioned debates about belief systems, about, okay, here's my issue, here's your issue, but let's use the framework that currently exists? Those are the two sides. You got to choose. All right.